Hi, fourth graders. In this video, we're going to be covering page 265 in your math textbook. It is chapter 7, and it's the opening activity where we begin to add and subtract fractions. So the first thing that this is going to ask us to do is to show what we know, and is to check our understanding of important skills before we start adding and subtracting fractions. The first part says fractions equal to 1. So every fraction is a part of a whole. And so we're going to write the fraction that names the whole. This fraction here, this rectangle, is divided into 4 equal parts. And so the whole would, and all 4 of them are shaded, so the whole would be 4/4. And 4/4 is the same as 1. This rectangle is divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts, which means it's divided into fifths, and so 5/5 would equal 1. The next part checks your understanding of parts of a whole, and so we are to write a fraction that names the shaded part. So first we have to check to see how many pieces are shaded, and in number 3, in this circle, 1 part is shaded, so that's our numerator. And then we're going to count the total number of parts to determine our denominator. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts. So the amount shaded, is 1/8. In number 4, it's pretty easy to spot that this is 2 parts shaded out of 3 parts of a whole. So this one represents 2/3. And number 5, the numerator is the number of parts that are shaded, that's 3. And the total number of parts of the make up the whole, and that's 4. So it is 3/4. Our next section has us reading and writing fractions. We are to write a fraction for the shaded part and then write a fraction for the unshaded part. And so the shaded part, in this one we can first talk about our numerator. 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to be 4. 4 out of how many pieces total? Well, I know if there's 4 across and 3 down, 4 times 3 is 12, so that is 4/12. And what about the unshaded part? If I know there are 4 shaded here, and there are 12 total, then that leaves 8 that would be unshaded. And if you needed to count those, that's fine too. So then the fraction that represents the shaded part would be 4/12. The fraction that represents the unshaded portion would be 8/12. In this shape here, in number 7, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts make up the whole. 2 parts are shaded, so that's 2/5. And there are 3 parts that are unshaded, which would make 3/5. Now, one of the things that it's working you up to is for you to recognize that 4/12 plus 8/12 is going to equal 12/12, which will equal a whole. And 2/5 plus 3/5 will equal 5/5, which will equal 1. All right, Math Detective with Carmen Sandiego. The electricity that powers our appliances is converted from many sources of energy. About 5/10 is made from coal, about 2/10 from natural gas, and about another 2/10 from nuclear power. Be a math detective. About how much of our electricity comes from sources other than coal, natural gas, or nuclear power. So the first thing I need to do is to determine how much of it comes from coal, natural gas, and nuclear power. And I know that that would be 5/10 plus 2/10 plus 2/10, which would give me 5, 6, 7, 8, 9/10. And then if it's asking me how much comes from other sources other than these 3, my answer would be 1/10 comes from other sources. So when we're adding fractions that all have the same denominator, all we do is add our numerator and write it over our denominator. We do not ever add our denominators, okay? Our next video will be on page 266.